This video is sponsored by Silver One Resources. Hey everyone, this is Elijah Johnson with FinanceandLiberty.com, and with us today is Greg Crowe, the CEO and President of Silver One. Greg, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, Elijah, it's a pleasure to be able to speak with you.
One of the first things I'd like to discuss is your expectations for the precious metals as we come into this new year in just 1 month. So what is your expectations for gold and silver in 2017?
Well, I'm, of course, going to be bullish on silver and gold, and in particular silver, because I think it has been undervalued with respect to gold for way too many years, if not decades. And I think there is a correction that's going to be coming. Silver certainly is a much more diverse metal. It has many more industrial uses, not to mention the fact that it is a precious metal as well. So what are the factors there that are going to make it a bullish year for silver and gold? I think you can look to your presidential election, and some of those election promises were put there. And we can discuss some of those if you want to go further.
Definitely. So what presidential promises, now that, there was this big upset, a lot of experts were thinking that Clinton was going to win. Trump won the presidency instead. So as Trump does take the White House, what presidential promises, as you're talking about, do you think are bullish for precious metals?
Well, I think the biggest one, of course, is his infrastructure spending program, which, is going to stimulate the economy to some degree, but it's also going to add significantly to a currently overburdened debt load, which the U.S. is carrying. Now, the U.S. currently is riding a high wave with respect to its currency, but if you look at the underlying problems with respect to the overall economy and the debt of the U.S., they haven't gone away, and they're only going to increase. Right now, the only reason, in my mind, the U.S. is doing so well with respect to its currency is because all the other currencies really are faltering. And so it's a comparative issue. I think going forward, we're going to see those spending programs come into play, and we're going to see more inflation, and that's always good for precious metals.
Do you think you are more bullish on gold or silver going forward?
I think silver, as I said earlier, that silver, I think in my mind, is undervalued with respect to gold. If you look at historic gold-silver ratios, historically for thousands of years they were sitting there around 15-1, and it's only been within the last few decades that we're seeing the ratio change dramatically, and now sitting around 70-1. I think you're going to see a correction in that. As I said, silver is a much more interesting element in the sense that it has all those industrial uses, and more industrial uses are coming into play, particularly in the medical fields, etc. But with respect to silver going forward as well, I think you're going to see it upturn with gold, but at the same time, you're going to see that ratio decrease.
In more of the long term, where do you see the gold-silver ratio heading?
Well, I see it heading down more towards the 60s and 50s, which would be very, very good for silver, particularly in a bullish inflationary market where you're going to see the rise of both precious metals in terms of their performance.
Now, looking at this month, right now, it's the 1st of December, and a lot of experts are thinking that we're going to see a rate hike by the Fed. What impact do you think that would have on the precious metal markets?
I'm just curious as whether it will have a big impact. I think there'll be a small impact, of course, but I think a lot of it's already expected, and a lot of it is already built into the precious metal prices. You've seen gold come down since the Trump election, and is there going to be a rate hike, and will they be able to sustain those rate hikes? I think, yes, we're going to see a rate hike in December, but as, shall we say, the inflationary pressures start kicking in 2017, I think you're going to see them think about, do we really want to increase rate hikes, or do we want to keep them the rates stationary, or even start decreasing them again in order to get that inflationary beast back under control? And so I think overall, with inflation, you're going to see that's good for gold and silver, But at the same time, should they start halting or decreasing rate hikes, that can also be good for gold and silver. So I think 2017, we're going to see something very interesting happen with respect to precious metal prices.
Now, discussing about how to invest in precious metals, there are a lot of different ways to invest in precious metals, and one of them is mining stocks. And I know we can't give financial advice on this YouTube channel, but if you could explain a little bit about the advantages of investing in particularly mining stocks.
Yeah, sure, not a problem. I mean, as you said, many different ways to invest in precious metals. Mining stocks are very interesting in that if you have a good mining stock with good fundamentals, particularly in the early days of its existence, I think that the percentage gains on a good mining stock will far outweigh what you're going to get by just holding on to the precious metal itself. I mean, the precious metal itself is certainly good to have in your portfolio, but mining stocks, even though they are higher risk, will give you potential for a much, much larger gain on your investment. But be that the case, you have to do your due diligence, make sure that it is a solid group that you are dealing with good assets, and, as I said, the best stage for the strongest performance, the positive performance of a good mining or exploration stock is in the early days. That said, then Silver One, which I have just recently come on as the president and CEO of, has only been trading for 3 months, and yet we are on a solid growth curve at the same time. So we're early stage, and at the same time, I think that we're an example of one that has good growth potential.
Now, Silver One, its aim is to become a premier Mexican silver-focused exploration and development company. Can you tell us a little bit more about Silver One and the 3 properties it has in Mexico?
Sure. Silver One was formed essentially a hedge for silver, and what we're looking at is creating a company, putting solid assets into it, and building from that base. Now, that took place about 3 months ago with the acquisition of 3 very good silver projects in Mexico, and they were acquired from First Mining Finance. First Mining Finance is part of a stable of companies with First, Majestic, etc., that are run through Keith Neumeyer. Now, the First Mining Finance projects, we gave them 6 million shares of our company, making First Mining Finance one of the largest single investor into Silver One. The 3 projects that were acquired, 2 of them have historic silver resources on it. We are currently doing some exploration on 2 of those projects, and with that advancement, we have started the process of growing the company from an organic viewpoint, i.e., we're working on our existing assets. That said, also from the First Mining Finance company, we also shall we say, took on a former director of that company, a fellow by the name of Raul Diaz, who used to work for Peñoles. What's interesting about Raul is he's a Mexican citizen. He's also a U.S. citizen living in Tennessee, but he has also essentially, because of his affiliations with Peñoles in the past, he has good connections with a lot of the producers, families, and operating companies in Mexico. He's a good conduit or a pipeline for potential acquisitions. So we're taking a 2-pronged approach. Not only are we developing the assets that we got from First Mining Finance, but we're also looking at good acquisition opportunities. Those acquisitions will target as more advanced stage projects and possibly even a production stage situation.
Now, can you expand a little bit on the growth potential of Silver One?
Well, as I said, we're currently doing exploration on 2 of our projects, the Peñasco Quemado, which has a historic resource already of about 10 million ounces. We think there's room to expand that significantly, and we're also looking at a very high-grade silver vein system, typical of what the Mexicans are famous for mining, and that one's called La Frazada, and we're doing exploration with respect to increasing that historic resource as well. And as I said, we're also looking at some acquisition opportunities, more advanced projects that would be advanced exploration to perhaps the pre-feasibility, feasibility level, but we're also looking at some potential producing situations which would turn Silver One into a producing company. But please take time, and they're not going to happen overnight. But we are following that guideline.
All right. Well, Greg, thank you so much for your time today. Did you want to share with the viewers where people can find your website and also any last thoughts you had?
Yeah, okay. Essentially, first of all, we trade on 3 exchanges. On the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol SVE. We trade over the counter. The symbol is SLVRF, and we trade in Frankfurt at BRK1. Our website is www.silver1, all one word, lowercase.com. So, and you can go on to any of those, or you can go onto that site or search for us on Google, and you'll be able to see the company and what it's about and its performance.
All right. Once again, thank you so much for your time today.
Okay, Elijah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.